Good morning, one and all. You are seeing me in real time right now, and for the rest of the service, you will see me as pre-recorded. And other parts of the service are pre-recorded, except for a couple of exceptions. Eileen Vargas will give you a proper welcome in a couple of minutes. She is, thank goodness, in the safety of her home, as is Nancy Kidd, and as is Nick Place, whom I want to especially thank because he pulled this together. We anticipated this storm and pre-recorded almost everything, thanks as well to the choir. So I will step off the stage now and wish you a wonderful hour to come and rest of the day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Welcome to the First Religious Society, Unitarian Universalist in Newburyport, Massachusetts. I'm Eileen Vargas Costello, and I have the privilege of serving as your worship associate this morning. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We are glad you're here. We come together at FRS on Zoom this morning, committed to love, peace, and justice. Our mission and our invitation to all of you is to come as you are, journey together in love, act with courage, transform our world. Reverend Stan Barrett, our minister this morning, is retired after decades of ordained ministry in local churches, pastoral counseling, and hospital chaplaincy. He is pleased to remain an affiliate minister of the First Religious Society. He and Leslie Lawrence will celebrate their 20th wedding anniversary on September 24th this year. If you would like to access this morning's order of service, please click on the link in the chat. It would also be shared in text form in the chat throughout the service. Please take a moment to review your order of service for all the activities happening this week. In particular, today after the service on this same Zoom link, we will have an informal coffee hour for about 15 minutes where you can unmute and chat with other congregants. This Tuesday evening, February 18th, Reverend Rebecca and Nick, our Director of Church Music, will be leading a service of poetry and music in the sanctuary from 7 to 8 p.m. Please join us for this service, which hopes to inspire peace, solidarity, and rejuvenation. Since the parish board congregation was snowed out last Sunday, the board will be sharing about their work during the service next Sunday, the 23rd, with a Q&A following the service. Also happening next Sunday, the 23rd, the first Gene C. Wilson Music Series concert. At 4 p.m. in the sanctuary, Cuban Art Song Project will present a concert of Cuban love songs, followed by a salsa dancing class in Parish Hall. Please visit the FRSUU website for more details. Every Sunday, it is such a blessing that we can gather, so let us give ourselves to it. Welcome once again. It's good to be together.
Let us join our hearts in a time of worship. In times of stress and storm, it is especially important that we gather as a community of worship, support, and service. So today, let us bask in each other's love and presence wherever we are, and let us know that we shelter in the shadow of the holy and under the wings of the eternal. You are joyfully called to worship.
Please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, number 1023 in the Teal hymnal, Building Bridges. The link to the hymns is in the chat.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, with all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Please join in saying our chalice lighting words as I light the chalice. The words can be found on your screen. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together.
Each week we also light 2 candles of peace, representing 2 places on earth we lift up and remember as a sacred encounter with our world. There are an untold number of places on earth that need peace. These 2 we especially hold close in this service and through the week ahead. After each candle is lit, I will invite you to respond saying, peace, salam, shalom. Our first candle is lit for all people who identify as trans or non-binary, whose sense of self seems targeted by the administration for erasure from public awareness. May compassion reclaim its place in our public conversation. To this we respond, peace, salam, shalom. Our second candle is lit for the people of Gaza, whose suffering would be unimaginable if we weren't watching it on TV, and whose land is being suggested as real estate prime for development as a vacation spot. We pray for justice. To this we respond, peace, salam, shalom. Please rise in body or spirit as we join our voices in our affirmation of faith, followed by the doxology. The words can be found in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God.
From all that dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land by every tongue.
Generosity of our community is an essential ministry that supports the work of the church both in Newburyport and beyond. Each week, 50% of the Sunday offering not designated as a pledge goes to a local community partner engaged in important efforts to transform our region. Our community partner this month is Massachusetts Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence. The Massachusetts Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence brings together over 90 organizations across the state, including First Religious Society, to end the epidemic of gun violence by advocating for improved policies around gun safety and partnering with community organizations working to end violence in their neighborhoods. To give online, please use the link in the chat. You can also make a contribution by text, and of course, you can always mail a check to the church as well. Thank you. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Kidd. Each week we lift up the joys and sorrows of our beloved faith community. I will read what has been shared with me in advance of today's service. If you would like to share a joy or sorrow to be read in the service, you can always send an email to betweenus@frsuu.org or write in the journal that will always be in the vestibule. We light a candle this morning of blessed memory for Nathan Wilbur, whose memorial service will be held at FRS on Saturday, March 8th at 1 p.m. Reverend Rebecca will be officiating. Linda and Will Budenhagen share the sad news that their good friend, Reverend Edwin Lynn, passed away on February 10th in his sleep. They write, quote, Ed and his wife, Marge, have been our dear friends for over 50 years since the time Ed became the minister at the North Shore UU Church in Danvers. He was a wonderful man, and we will greatly miss him. Reverend Rebecca extends deepest sympathies on behalf of all our UU ministerial colleagues to Ed's children and grandchildren. Reverend Lynn was a remarkable minister who will be deeply missed by all his colleagues. A memorial service will be held at the North Shore Church, UU, in Danvers on March 1st at 5 p.m. We light a candle of joy and gratitude for Susan Cooper, who writes, quote, Woman is grateful and joyful that I can offer safe living space for Stacy and Aspen while they wait for affordable housing. They are two FRS members, and I'm proud to call my friends. Leslie Lawrence thanks all of the FRS friends responsible for the lovely bouquet of flowers hand-delivered to her door this week. What a lovely surprise, she says. They brightened my day and were just what the doctor ordered. Also, from Reverend Rebecca, I was hoping that you could include a virtual candle of gratitude for my FRS family in this week's service. I want to express my sincere appreciation for the thoughtful Valentine's gift I received, that someone took the time to make a handmade card and hand sew heart sachets made my heart swell. The flowers are beautiful and bring me joy. The love from FRS was undoubtedly felt by you all, and it made me cry. Thank you for your thoughts, your words, and your actions. With gratitude, Adrian Germain. And we will light one final candle for all the joys and sorrows that, although unspoken, are held in just as much love and care. And I invite us to join together to sing Sanctuary once through. Please leave your microphones muted, however. Thank you.
Open my heart to be a sanctuary, all made holy, loved and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Let us join together in a few moments of prayer, meditation, and contemplation. O you who are our source, our sustainer, and our journey's end, we lift up our hearts to you today. We do so first in thanks for life, for beauty, our own and that of our world, for our families, friends, neighbors, and the strangers in our midst. For inquiring minds, loving hearts, helping hands, we thank you. We also lift up broken hearts, hearts broken by abuse and neglect, whether age-old or recent, hearts wounded by loves lost and lives lost, hearts seared by a world on fire. We lift up pleading hearts, asking help for our own lives and those of our beloveds and acquaintances, seeking wisdom for solving the problems and healing the hurts of our nation and world. And we offer what we mean to be willing hearts, ready to be moved to new layers of openness and vulnerability, yearning to be used as agents of hope and repair. Hear our prayer and make us instruments of your peace. Amen.
Reading this morning is part of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount as recorded by Matthew, chapter 5, verses 43 to 45 and 48. Of all his teachings, these are perhaps the most likely to be passed over and ignored, or read and quickly forgotten, and not surprisingly so. As spiritual paths go, what they call for is a very steep climb. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. For he makes his sun to shine on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the righteous and on the unrighteous. Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect.
You can play the game, you can act out the part, but you know it wasn't written for you. But tell me, how can you stand here with a broken heart, ashamed of playing the fool? One thing can lead to another, it doesn't take any sacrifice. Oh, father and mother, sister and brother, if it feels nice, don't think twice, just shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you only will. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel.
what do you plan to do with your foolish pride when you're all by yourself alone? Won't you tell somebody the way that you feel? You can feel it beginning to ease. I think it's true what they say about the squeaky wheel, always getting the grease. Better to shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna be just fine if you only will. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel.
Arnold Mindell, widely known as Arnie, died on June 10th last year. He was to me a real mentor and teacher. Raised in Schenectady, New York, he got a master's in physics at MIT, then went to Zurich to become a Jungian analyst, and eventually became a training analyst at the Jung Institute there. Over time, he came to be interested as much in the process behind his patients' physical symptoms as in the meaning of their dreams. Inveterately curious, he investigated and then added insights and methods from such modalities as movement therapy and family therapy to what came to be called process-oriented psychology, or simply process work. Then he was drawn to big social, cultural, national, and international problems, and developed ways of working on such issues with large groups in what he and his colleagues called world work. I had the challenge and privilege of being part of 250 to 300 person groups under a tent in a hotel parking lot on the Oregon coast, and later in a hotel ballroom in Slovakia shortly after the fall of the Iron Curtain, working on such issues as racism, sexism, homophobia, and, as you can imagine in the case of Slovakia, relations between Russia and its former Soviet satellites. In the following reading from Arnie's book, The Leader as Martial Artist, he refers on the one hand to tools for working on group conflict, and on the other hand to what he calls the attitude of deep democracy. Although an artist must learn the methods of her brush and paints, it is finally her most special feelings that allow her to be a successful artist. Likewise, the tools of world work can only succeed with the attitude of deep democracy, that special feeling of belief in the inherent importance of all parts of ourselves and all viewpoints in the world around us. While world work is a set of tools that must be continuously updated as we better understand our planet, deep democracy is a timeless feeling. It is found in all perennial spiritual traditions, especially in the martial arts, Taoism, and Zen Buddhism. It is our sense of responsibility to follow the flow of nature, respect fate, energy, or in the Far East, Tao or Qi, and of our role in co-creating history. Deep democracy is our sense that the world is here to help us become our entire selves, and that we are here to help the world become whole. Such a special feeling sense may well be the outcome of psychological growth, or may be simply given. Yet, like spiritual abilities, deep democracy alone is not sufficient in dealing with world situations. Likewise, world work techniques become meaningless in the hands of those without the necessary inner development, without a sense of deep democracy. Luckily, this sense can be developed anywhere. For whatever we do, whether cleaning house, relating to others, driving to work, conducting business, politics, or carpentry, studying or writing, we seem to use the world as if it were a workshop, a testing ground to challenge ourselves and one another to open up to everything in our inner and outer universes. Shortly before the November election, I ended up in conversation with one of you as we waited in line after a service. I said I thought we were about to elect our first woman president, and an African American and South Asian at that. He expressed neither agreement nor disagreement, but said, either way, we have a lot of work to do. He was right, and I agree that even had I also been right, we still would have had a lot of work to do. By we, I mean, first of all, this congregation and its friends, and more broadly, any who are alarmed by the election, what has followed, and what is likely to ensue. I know we are not monolithic, but I dare to hope that each of you will find a place for yourself in this we I'm claiming to speak to and for today. I hasten to add that by we, I also mean, and you could say this is one way to summarize the sermon, that there is a larger we, what is sometimes called the body politic. And we all of us, have a lot of work to do if we're to move forward with less hurting and more healing. To put briefly what I'll soon say at more length, I think we have to try our hardest to get the point of view of those who disagree with us. Several years ago, a high school classmate wrote on Facebook, "Liberals just don't get it." Well, we probably don't as a rule, and neither, I'm sure, does he, so there. We have to do better, all of us, after honoring but then bracketing momentarily our own fear, anger, and vision. Do better at climbing inside the fears, anger, and vision for country and society of those who oppose us. Before saying more about that, let me say that I know it's asking a lot. Our fear and anger don't rest on thin air. They have a solid basis. And the less privilege you carry, and the more you've suffered for your lack of privilege, the harder it is to swallow the suggestion of identifying with the fears and anger of the well-intentioned people on, quote, the other side, end quote. There's every reason to want to fight and resist and protect each other, especially the most vulnerable among us. Fight, resist, and protect, that is, at least when we're not licking our wounds. But I ask myself, how is this working for us? This, when we fight, we win, and sometimes it just takes a little longer. As much as I cheer at and join those sentiments, how's it working? True, there are victories, but then 1973's Roe v. Wade win becomes 2022's Dobbs v. Jackson loss, and it feels like we're worse off than we were when we started, even if maybe that's not quite true. No, I think, though it's asking a lot, that we have to fight, resist, and protect, and do our best to find inside us a place where we can get the other side of the body politic, which we are. We'll all be better served if we can get to a place where, in addition to fighting the, quote, enemy, end quote, we can genuinely say with Walt Kelly's cartoon character Pogo, we have met the enemy, and he is us. That's what I'm pointing to in the sermon title, becoming more of a both-and people. Both fighting for our vision, we can't do otherwise. Both that, and doing our darndest to get, if only for a moment and with 1% of our soul, the sincere vision of the other side. This is mostly, at least at first, inner work, soul work, working with our imaginations and our empathy while sitting alone on the couch or at the kitchen table. Or maybe it's work done with one or a few people whom we see as essentially like-minded. It needs to be grounded in sources of unprejudiced information about the viewpoint or worldview of those who disagree with us. Its purpose is preparing ourselves, changing ourselves, so that when the difficult conversations come, interactions with those with opposing views, not only will we actually be better able to hear and understand, but also something in our, dare I say, our energy, our face, our voice, our posture will convey more of friend and less of foe than if we hadn't done the work. Between human beings, subtle differences can count for a lot. You see, beneath and behind differences in policy and vision, and either undermining or facilitating attempts to work with them, are issues of relationship within the body politic. It wouldn't take long for us to come up with how we feel we are seen, the attitude with which we are greeted by, quote, the other side, end quote. As to how they perceive us seeing them, New York Times opinion writer and PBS NewsHour commentator David Brooks says, they feel looked down on by liberals, by the elite, as they see us seeing ourselves. I'd like to think they're wrong about how we treat them, but then I recall how easily we align with that familiar Martin Luther King Jr. quote of 19th century Unitarian minister Theodore Parker, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." Yes, I agree, and readily, if quietly, know I'm on the right side of history, God's side, if you will. But what does that at least imply, I think, about those whose view of justice differs from mine? Are they wrong to conclude that I see them as, well, behind the times, backward, unenlightened? If I do think that, even without admitting it to myself, what basis does it leave for respectful conversation? No, I'm not really talking today about policy differences, important as those are, or divergent visions of what is good and just for human beings. I'm talking about right relationship within the body politic and what we might do toward its improvement. I'm simply not convinced that everything we're going through can be explained with undue influence of the wealthy and powerful, a poorly informed populace, economics, campaign strategy, or the like. I think many millions of our fellow citizens simply disagree with our vision for the beloved community. If we're to do this work, we can't let ourselves get stuck on the worst policy changes we rightly fear or on their most outrageous advocates. With annexing Canada, invading Greenland, expelling 1 million people from our shores, trying to erase trans and non-binary identity, and gutting the civil service, just as a start, with those on our minds, together with their most prominent and powerful proponent, we'll never come within a mile of empathy and understanding of millions of people whose votes suggest fears and anger and a civic vision different from ours. What I want to suggest today about moving forward in right relationship with those whose vision of the good in the body politic differs from ours is that it involves first, listening, second, identifying, and third, verbalizing. First, listening. It can happen through conversation, reading, or some other form of learning, and is in order to understand the other point of view. Identifying is finding in that point of view something, some kernel, some essence, something we can understand not only with our head, but also with our heart, something we can actually find in ourselves and say yes to with at least 1% of our being. Verbalizing means expressing with empathy that piece of the opposing position or vision. Yes, with empathy, and empathy which is possible because we found at least a trace of it in ourselves. Crucial to this effort is understanding that we're not asking ourselves to agree with the point of view in the form in which it's being expressed or acted. We're looking for some essential core or part of it, some instinct, impulse, some yearned for or hoped for thing within or behind it to which we can say, yes, me too. Let me offer an example, and a very personal one. I spent a fair amount of time over the last 4 years or so trying to understand the conservative point of view. The immediate occasion of this undertaking was a question raised in our COVID time virtual FRS coffee hour around the 2020 election. A question I recall is something like, how can we deal with this frightful cultural divide? That was the immediate trigger for my search, pursued mostly through study and through conversation with evangelical and Catholic friends. On reflection, though, I can see that the impulse goes back much further. I can see I have been trying to understand my mother, who passed on in 2009, trying to understand her as she was and as she lives in me. You see, she once said to me, probably 50 or more years ago, I don't think I could ever speak again to a woman who had an abortion. Just that. No other words, and I don't think I voiced a response. A bit shocked, I suppose. As I remember, and of course time and many other factors can affect memory, but I recall her saying it with a kind of shake of her head, perhaps somewhat puzzled as well as determined. Her look a mixture, I think, of puzzlement and judgment, not understanding how anyone could make that decision and judgment that they would do so. Now, was that a harsh judgment? Yes, certainly seemed so to me. Did it show, or at least imply, since I'm speculating based on little evidence, does it suggest at least, the very least, a lack of understanding, even imagination, of life situations very different from hers, in a stable marriage, with adequate, if not ample, financial resources and sufficient financial supports? Yes, it failed in understanding and imagination. But what I also know about Betty Ann is that she loved children, undoubtedly found joy, not only joy, of course, but genuine joy in her every pregnancy, and truly couldn't fathom choosing to end any of them. Now, there's nothing in Betty's statement that I can get on board with. In the form in which she's expressing her point of view, I simply must stand against it. But if beneath those words and the action they anticipate, if beneath or behind that was something like, human life, even in embryo, is so precious that it deserves protection, even at great personal cost, that's much easier to get behind, if only with a lot of caveats and yes buts. Could I find it within myself to go over, stand beside my mother, and verbalize that point of view with empathy, knowing that a minute later I could turn around and face her again and say, but nevertheless? Could I? Yes. Could you in a similar situation? I don't know. If not, maybe for you it would be something else in that point of view, something else to which you could say, yes, me too. Or maybe for you this issue is not the right place to begin. Too hot, too personal, too enraging perhaps, too frightening. Maybe on another issue you could find something to which you could say, yes, me too. Both and. Listen and learn, identify and verbalize with empathy, knowing that you can then return to your accustomed point of view. This need not be a zero-sum game. It's about moving toward a better relationship. Both and. Hard, but possible. I want to note in passing that my mother was much more and often quite different from what this snapshot reveals. It was she who, among many other things, laid a foundation in me, and I make no great claims for what I built on it, for right relationship with BIPOC people, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. May she rest in peace or thrive in new adventures. Yes, becoming more of a both-and people. Arnold Mindell, whose words you heard earlier, helps to fill out the point of view I'm offering. Arnie, to vastly oversimplify his thinking and that of Carl Jung, took Jung's idea of the shadow and ran with it. Our shadow is a part of ourselves we don't like and don't want to look at. And it shows up in our dreams as a shadow figure, usually scary, definitely unwelcome. The thing is, Jung understood dreams as compensatory, making up for what we fail to acknowledge and claim of ourselves for our waking everyday life. In other words, we need our shadow. You could say it is an energy we need to figure out how to make constructive use of in our life. Arnie gives the example of working with a boy who dreamt of a witch and when speaking of this character, made a gesture that we might describe as menacing, with a claw-like hand. Arnie mirrored the gesture back to the boy and asked, "Where do you need more of this in your life?" Then he explored with the boy how he could be that witch in a useful way, how taking on that energy could help him to be more whole. Though this is not my dream, recounting it brings up for me the memory of a playground incident when I was in probably the 3rd or 4th grade. I was playing with a kickball-sized ball when another boy came up and grabbed it away. Normally a mild-mannered Clark Kent type, in that moment I unhesitatingly ran after the boy and forcefully took back the ball. He just stood there, likely surprised by my unaccustomed fierceness. Something like Clark Kent was my usual identity. Fierce Stan was my shadow self. Had Arnie been my therapist, he would have asked what I had dreamt the night before. In relationships, the shadow shows up in the other person when we disagree or fight. If we stay related long enough, we discover that we need each other not only for the parts of the other we enjoy, but also for those we don't like so much. I like to spend money, you like to save it. Probably we'll learn that each preference has some wisdom in it, and our relationship needs both. You might say that each of us not only is a person, but is holding a role that the relationship needs, the spender role and the saver role. I may think that I am the spender, and you think so too, but in fact, that's not who I am. It's a role I'm in. I don't actually have to remain stuck in it, hard as it seems to leave it and try out being a saver. Same for you in your saver role. Person and role may coincide for a while, but they're not the same. More fluidity around roles can make relationships more fun, too. These insights can help us in working with group conflicts, whether in a family, a congregation, or a nation. We need each other in order to be complete, hard as that may be to stomach, if the other's view of what's to be hoped for and what to be worked toward seems irreconcilable with ours. And, though I'm totally identified with my point of view, it's not all of me, not all I'm capable of. It's possible, if very, very difficult, to find support for the other viewpoint inside me. Possible even to try it on for size, if only briefly. The truth, hard as it is even to entertain, may be that the group, the body politic, needs something in some form from each point of view for its wholeness. And here, too, more fluidity holds promise of a healthier nation and world. Back to both and. Friends, I can't tell you how anxious I've become as I've been preparing for this service. It's an anxiety grounded in what's happening in our nation and world, but intensified by my needing to say something which I'm convinced must be said, which I cannot not say, but the saying of which feels like swimming against a strong tide. It's a tide within me, and I imagine in many, if not most of you, a tide rushing toward fight, resist, and protect, or toward hide, pay less attention, wish for the best, pray, hope the court or Congress will do something, and wait out these 4 years, or some combination of those alternatives. I say now, let's swim with that tide, each in their own way. But if we want to do more than survive these times, if we want to lay a foundation for a better civic future, we need to learn double tasking. We have to both swim or stand for our truth and civic vision, and find and communicate a deeper understanding, respect, and empathy for those whose fears and vision are different from ours. Almost impossible, I know. But if not here, where? If not now, when? If not we, who?
Please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing our closing hymn. It's number 1014 in the Teal Hymnal, Answering the Call of Love. You can find the words in the link shared in the chat. Please leave your microphones muted.
Of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide, and so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. By faith, we dare to proclaim, we are answering the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, but willing to hear, denying the beauty we found.
Please remain standing and join in saying our unison benediction as Eileen extinguishes the chalice. The words can be found in your order of service. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. Friends, let's ask ourselves this week, how big is our wingspan? How big a circle can we cast, at least in our hearts? I myself am better at thinking and talking about it than doing it. But in fact, maybe it's typically a work at least best begun when working on ourselves alone or with a few people we trust. What is our wingspan? Let's investigate. Go in peace, dear ones. Spread peace and return in great joy. Amen.